Grace and peace be to you all. Of course, we're going to talk boxing, but before we do, I got to use a piece of scripture. I really should be praying right now and resting, so I'm going to do that. But I just wanted to go through Psalms 9, extended verse 3. Verse 1 says, I will praise you, O Lord, with my entire heart. When we start talking about the body of Christ, the heart of Christ becomes a lot more than just one individual. So when we talk about praising the Lord with our whole heart, we're talking about with His Holy Spirit. It's a bigger heart than our little individual minds. We're praising Him by using Him. We're praising Him by becoming one in the body, one mind, one spirit, one goal, etc. I will show forth all your marvelous works. We will show forth all your marvelous works. That again goes beyond you or me as an individual showing, but collectively showing God. And been blessed today. So I have done another. I had to do some extra work on my tooth. I got a root canal done. God's blessed me. My brother wanted to do it for me for free, but I've been blessed, and then I've gotten enough money to be able to start paying him. Still not enough, but it's enough money to pay him. I will be glad and rejoice in you. Again, this I or we will be glad and rejoice in you is actually the Holy Spirit rejoicing in us. And as a result, we rejoice in God. The I and you and me thing. Can you feel God's presence everywhere you go? Today I was stressed out, and I still get stressed out sometimes. I think about different things and so on. And then I remember God's presence. I look around me and I feel God's presence everywhere. And then my stress level goes down. Because God is everywhere. And not only is He everywhere, but because we're part of His body, He's not only in us, but we are in Him. It's really awesome. Not only literally, but also spiritually. It's awesome, isn't it? I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. When my enemies are turned back, they shall fall and perish at your presence. Man, that is so dope. So we want to talk about some current affairs and fantasy matchups, and about something else that might tick some people off, but it really shouldn't tick anybody off. Shout out to my viewer, whoever you are. I haven't checked yet to see who you are on the feed, but you can leave your comments in the chat section. So in boxing, there's a lot of things I want to talk about. So in boxing anyway, when I check out boxingscene.com, there's a couple things that are really cool and interesting. Let me first give you guys a look at what's actually going on currently. Eddie Hearn speaks about Gennady Golovkin being the #1 choice for Callum Smith. Callum Smith would love to fight Gennady Golovkin at 168. Canelo's going up to 168. Finally, Gennady Golovkin looks like he's going to test the waters at 168. Not necessarily. It's just a talk by Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn just trying to make matches. Manny Pacquiao versus Adrian Broner. They're looking at a press conference somewhere around Monday, Tuesday. So that fight looks like it's moving along. We'll see if they actually fight one another, etc. Becomes official. We'll know in time. Clarissa Shields says she'll go as low as 154 for Cecilia Brækhus. Cecilia Brækhus has been the undisputed welterweight champion for a good while. I just want to go into a little bit about women's boxing for a second there and say that women's boxing is interesting. I got to admit, though, after looking at a couple of women boxing fights, a lot of them just go at it a lot of times. Even though they have a lot of skill and stuff, they go at it. And the going at it, you don't really see much skill. You don't see really a lot of feints or anything. They just go at it. And I don't always particularly enjoy those kinds of fights. When Clarissa Shields faced Hannah, I forget what her surname is. Again, Clarissa Shields kind of powered her way through, and Hannah was able to knock her down first in the early rounds. And Clarissa Shields, of course, the bigger, stronger person. But Hannah held her own in that fight, and you can argue that she won the fight if you want. But Clarissa Shields doesn't really impress me. She's more about going to war than she is about actually boxing and the beauty of boxing. So that's the thing that kind of doesn't impress me about her. She just likes to throw punches a lot. More action. Keith Thurman versus Josesito Lopez, and Garcia versus, this is Danny Garcia versus Adrian Granados. So Granados might get to feature himself. Leo Santa Cruz versus Flores. Seems to be set fights that are coming up. Exactly when those fights are happening, let me give you a little update on that. So the fights, Keith Idec did this article. He said it looks like it's around January the 26th when this whole entire fight card will happen. So looks like it's going to be on Premier Boxing Champions Fox. So Josesito Lopez versus Keith Thurman does not impress me. However, I'll tell you the fight that impresses me. Danny Garcia versus Adrian Granados. Definitely going to see that. Adrian Granados has impressed me as a boxer. He's held his own against Sean Porter. He held his own against Adrian Broner. You could argue he won against Adrian Broner. I'd love to see that guy fight again at welterweight. One thing though, I would suggest to Adrian Granados he goes back down to junior welterweight and grab a title. This guy can easily win a world title right now at junior welterweight. So I would suggest that he moves down to junior welterweight and get cop a title, man. Because, Gerald Washington, Adam Kaunaki, he may face Gerald Washington on Fox that night when Thurman faces Josesito Lopez. So that should be interesting. People are talking about Danny Garcia versus Adrian Granados taking place somewhere in April. So it's not formalized where and when as yet. But that should be a good fight, though. Apparently, Adrian Granados called out Danny Garcia. So that should be something I would love to see. So those are some of the upcoming fights that you guys might care to see, but definitely I won't see anything with Adrian Granados. Now on March 9th in Las Vegas, Sean Porter will be facing a Cuban fighter named Yordenis Ugas. I don't know who that fighter is. Apparently he has to defend his title or something. It's mandatory. And they're going to do that somewhere around March 9th. So that's what's going on with Sean Porter. Doesn't seem like he's facing Keith Thurman anytime soon. Joe Smith Jr. is talking about facing Arthur Beterbiev. As you know, Beterbiev pulled out of that fight with Joe Smith Jr. And Joe Smith Jr. said if he lands a fight with Arthur Beterbiev, he's going to finish him. Interesting. Evander Holyfield commented on Usyk saying he's the best of his time. Eddie Hearn saying Joshua Usyk will be a massive fight one day, but not right at this point in time. Usyk agrees. And Alexander Povetkin he said he's going to have 2 more fights and then he's going to retire from boxing. So that's Alexander Povetkin said very recently. Tony Parker spoke about wanting the Dillian White versus Derek Chisora winner. He said he's not looking to fight uh, Alexander Usyk, and that makes sense. Um, he was a former world champion, so obviously he would want to get a championship fight or something near that. But as I said before, Alexander Usyk, he could fight somebody like a Dillian White or Derek Chisora. I think those are good fights for him. Even though I think Dillian White and Chisora, they'd probably try to bully him and use their weight against him. But we'd see how that would go. It looks like Amir Khan and Kell Brook, it looks like they will finally fight one another. And Eddie Hearn is trying to finalize the March date for that fight. Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. They actually spoke to one another, Amir Khan and Kell Brook, very recently. So it looks like they really are trying to get that fight finally done and signed. And that's pretty cool to know. So those are some of the updates that we have at present. Nonito Donaire might be facing Zolani Tate. So he's saying if I can land my best shots, I probably can't stop Zolani Tate. Zolani Tate's a very outstanding bantamweight, so I don't know how that will work out, but we'll see. And finally, Bivol, who is the lightweight, I think it's WBA champion, he's talking about Pascal's style will make a better fight than Chilemba Bo. So he's looking forward to Jean Pascal facing Jean Pascal instead of Chilemba, which makes sense. I mean, Pascal and him should be very testing because Pascal's a very powerful puncher, very strong guy. Has a bit of counter punching skills. It's a bit wild. Should still be interesting to see how those two face each other. And Sullivan Barrera is free of his contract with his former promoter. He's a free agent, so he says he wants Elita Alvarez, Arthur Beterbiev, and Badou Jack. And of course, Badou Jack spoke about any one of the champions he would have no problem facing. Paulie Malignaggi had this to say about the Usyk Bellew fight, which I thought was very interesting. Paulie Malignaggi had this to say. He said Tony Bellew was good, clever, and good. Usyk was very frustrated. I think Bellew outboxed Usyk for when he was okay. I thought he played cat and mouse game in a very clever way. Big punch in your heart, but tonight you've got nothing to be ashamed of. Tonight Oh, wow. Okay, so I was not aware that the signal kind of fell off a bit. I don't know how far and how much of the signal fell off. I was speaking to you guys about all the current events that were happening in boxing, and apparently that sort of fell off for a minute. So, Tommy Temperature, ouch, that must hurt. Tommy Temperature, shout out to you. Yeah, it hurts a little bit. I'm still got some pain on it, but it's a long story. But the short version of it is that with my teeth, you're talking about Tommy. Um, the short version of it is that I'm okay. I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed, and I'm even able to pay this guy. You know, I paid him about $1,020 so far for my tooth to do this thing. We had to do a little bit further. We had to drill a little bit further um today, but it's been good. It's been good, man. You know, it's nice talking to you right now, Tommy, by the way. My mom's still in pain at present, but it's again the lower abdominal area where she's kind of dried out, so she doesn't get to poop to release gas and also use the toilet as regular, even though she used it yesterday. So keep her in your prayers, my friend. Um, I was talking about current events. I don't know how much of the current events you actually heard me speak about. So if you could just update me. Did you hear about what I last spoke about in BoxingScene.com concerning Paulie Malignaggi's talk on Alexander Usyk and what Tony Bellew did? If you didn't hear that, then I'm just going to give you the short version. The short version is he was impressed by Tony Bellew, who actually outsmarted Usyk and actually outplayed him, outboxed him, especially in the early parts of the fight. And he gave Usyk credit for coming back to stop Tony Bellew. I was saying that Bellew actually slowed down, and I think that's the reason why he was caught. And even that Usyk got into the fight because Bellew couldn't maintain the momentum, I think. But after speaking about that, I wanted to show you guys something. So I want to go into screen share here for a minute. Go into screen share. And I want to discuss a couple of things in boxing that we don't usually discuss, which is the female side of boxing. Now, currently, on the women's side of boxing, the top pound for pound boxer in the world right now is Cecilia Braekhus, right? She's undefeated, etc. And what I was saying is that what I find is in terms of women and in terms of women's boxing, there's a lot of scrapping that goes on. Sometimes in the middle of a fight, women will just start to scrap. And some of them are very skilled boxers mostly, but for some reason, they just start to scrap. And I find that sometimes sad because they just abandon all the feints and they just start throwing punches at one another. And they get all excitable. And sometimes, it's not cool. It doesn't look cool. There's no skill involved. So that's one of the things I think that turns off people sometimes from women's boxing because it's a lot more primitive than male boxing. However, I want to note a couple of boxers who have skills. Cecilia Braekhus has skill, but as of late, she's been scrapping a lot. And so she doesn't really look that great, in my opinion. But let me give you a couple of boxers that you can pay attention to who really show some skill up in there. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Was it Mariana Juarez? Hold on a second. Let me just see. No, it wasn't Mariana Juarez. Mariana Juarez is known as Boxing Barbie. All right. By the way, shout out to you, Tommy Temper. Clarissa Shields does not impress me at all. She's just too much into the banging. And she faced, I'm trying to remember what her name is. I think it's Hannah. Let me see if I can find her. She would be somewhere in here. Hannah Gabriels. Hannah Gabriels got skills. She actually knocked down Clarissa Shields in the first round. Hannah Gabriels got skills, but she found herself getting into a toe-to-toe kind of thing or a bang-out, even though she was still using a jab, keeping Clarissa Shields at bay for the most part. And she was really the one that was landing the more effective punches. Clarissa Shields is pretty strong. She's pretty big. And so her size and her bigness was what she was trying to impose. And she landed some shots on Hannah Gabriels, but Hannah Gabriels, for the most part, was handling her. In fact, coming on to the last seconds of the fight, Hannah Gabers got her in a corner and was pummeling her. You know what I mean? And so you could argue that Hannah Gabers won that fight, but Hannah Gabers being not on American soil and all of that, Clarissa Shields got the nod, and the commentators were very biased. They were only seeing what Clarissa Shields was doing anyway, so it is what it is. But Hannah Gabers got skill. She got skill. She's been beaten before, but she has skill. She has abilities, and she's one of those fighters that I actually kind of like. Another person who I think has skills and ability. I'm trying to remember where I see her here. She's a Puerto Rican boxer. Actually, there's a couple of them. Amanda Serrano. She's got good boxing pedigree, again from Puerto Rico. But I've seen her banging. I just don't like when they just bang. They just bang, bang, bang. It's really boring. But she has good skills. She's a southpaw, and I've seen her beat up some opponents and stuff. She has good skill and good ability. Let's see. Let me see if I can find any others here, because a lot of them just kind of bang out. It's really kind of terrible to see. Some of them actually box, right? Alicia Ashley is another southpaw, and she boxes pretty well. She was robbed against Nava. She should have won that fight. She outboxed Nava, but it is what it is. It is what it is in boxing. That's part of boxing, I guess. So you got some skilled boxers that actually do something in that ring. And some people undeservedly, unfortunately, lose fights when they should have won fights. But yeah, one of the things I think that's unappealing about women's boxing to some degree is that sometimes you just see these bang outs and they're like, what was going on here? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to see them kind of use some kind of feints or something. Or if a guy tries to throw a flurry of shots, see them counterpunch and get out the way. That slickness, that skill that sometimes is necessary. Sometimes you just don't see it. But it's just something that I just wanted to highlight in women's boxing. Because I was kind of watching women's boxing. I'm like, oh, man, now I remember why it's not that great. You know what I mean? Now, in terms of men's boxing currently, I'm in BoxRec. That's where I am. Okay. Currently, I don't agree with what BoxRec has, but it is what it is. They have Terence Crawford as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. There are a number of people who agree with that. I don't. I think Alvarez should be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world based on who he's faced and how he performed. And I believe Alvarez is going to face Rocky Fielding very soon. I think next month. And me personally, speaking on that, what I would say is that I think that Canelo, in terms of facing Rocky Fielding, I think that Canelo, Ego was saying that he's well prepared for that because he's been sparring super middleweights for a long time. I will say this. I think that Canelo, while he's sparred super middleweights and he's dealt with guys who hit pretty hard and stuff like that, in super middleweight and so on, I would say that's not the reason why I think he beats Rocky Fielding. I think that Canelo's style is one in which he can adapt to other styles. And that's the only reason why I think he could beat Rocky Fielding. I think when it comes down to it, it's about skills, it's about style, it's about, what kind of person you are, how your training, your conditioning, that kind of thing. So Rocky Fielding's a decent boxer. That's why he's WBA regular champion. Okay, Callum Smith is the actual champion. And as you hear, there's this talk by Eddie Hearn that he wants, GGG to face Callum Smith. I still think that Callum Smith's not as complete a fighter as Rocky Fielding, even though Callum Smith, as you have said, Tommy Temper, he's a guy that's been stopped by Rocky Fielding. I still think that he's much more complete fighter. I'm sorry, that Rocky Fielding stopped by Callum Smith. I think, though, Rocky Fielding's a much more complete fighter in terms of his body punching and mid-range fighting and that kind of stuff. But I could be wrong. He does have the typical European style of fighting, too, so it is what it is. But, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, that I think Alvarez going up to face Rocky Fielding is an awesome thing, but it's not like Alvarez is not prepared for Rocky Fielding. Let's put it that way. Alexander Usyk is now at third place. I mean, I understand why they have Terrence Crawford and Usyk so high, but the best competition Usyk has faced so far is Tony Bellew. That's not saying much, okay? I heard Paulie Malignaggi saying how Bellew tagged up Usyk so much. No other fighter will do that. He gets hit with lead rights pretty well. Okay, so that's a signal to the other heavyweights to do the same. Gennady Golovkin is in number 4. Lomachenko's number 5. Joshua's number 9. Callum Smith's ahead of some of these guys like Mikey Garcia. He's ahead of Errol Spence Jr., Manny Pacquiao. I don't even know how this happened. How could you be ahead of these guys? I don't know. But that's how they have it here. Now, what I'm going to talk about next is fantasy matchups really quickly. Some of you guys are going to be pissed when I talk about this. When you look at BoxRec, this is BoxRec, mind you. BoxRec has Floyd Mayweather as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter of all time. Used to be Sugar Ray Robinson, and now Floyd has surpassed him. Remember, this is a computerized system. You don't have to agree with it. And you see the other people who are below that, right? Now, here's what I got to say about this. I would say that, and okay, just for the Sugar Ray Leonard fans, Sugar Ray Leonard is somewhere at 29, 28. Okay, it's not even in the vicinity. But having said that, though, I wanted to say that, a lot of these fantasy matchups that we talk about have to do with how would this fighter do with that fighter. And so what do you have to think about if you're talking about the best fighter of all time, not the greatest? If you're talking about the best fighter of all time, it's the boxing skill of the fighter and how they performed in the ring with their boxing skills. And I think, like I said in a video I was going to send to you guys, but I didn't send it, is that Floyd Mayweather Jr., if he were to face up, for instance, a fantasy matchup with Mayweather Jr. and, say, for instance, Sugar Ray Leonard, because I do believe, as good as Sugar Ray Robinson was, I believe Leonard would have beaten Robinson. I believe that Floyd would beat Leonard. And this is just because boxing evolves. And if you watch a fighter and you pattern your style after the fighter or whatever, you're going to build on what you've seen clearly. So Sugar Ray Robinson was fantastic for his time, and he influenced Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. And so it's not surprising that Sugar Ray Leonard is a better boxer than Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson. You could argue if Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Robinson they were the same size, that it's possible Ali might have been able to beat Robinson. Even though I think Robinson is a much more complete fighter than Ali. And maybe Ali would be able to beat Robinson. Maybe. But it goes without saying that I believe Sugar Ray Leonard would beat Sugar Ray Robinson. A lot of people would say that's sacrilege. I truly believe Leonard would have beaten Robinson. And that's just the way how that goes. Just as how 9 out of 10 times or 10 out of 10 times Floyd Mayweather would beat Sugar Ray Leonard. It's just what it is. It's not something that is much. Floyd is has a lot more tools in his bag than Sugar Ray Leonard does. And he's a better defensive fighter than Sugar Ray Leonard was. So that's just how that goes. But there are a number of other fantasy matchups we could have looked at. And so, just looking at the top 30 fighters of all time, you can just mix and match them how you feel. One of them that would really tickle me would have been Pernell Whitaker versus Floyd Mayweather. I know who would have won. Mayweather would have beaten Whitaker. I know that. But the point is, that would be a wonderful matchup. Roberto Duran versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., sorry. That's a hell of a fight, right? Carlos Monzon versus Marvin Hagler. These are just titillating fights you're talking about here. Bernard Hopkins versus Hagler. Roy Jones Jr. versus Sugar Ray Robinson. Evander Holyfield versus Anthony Joshua. Evander Holyfield versus Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury. Muhammad Ali versus Lennox Lewis. um, you know, uh, Harry Kreb versus Marvin Hagler. You know, Vladimir Klitschko versus who? Versus his brother. Why not? Vladimir Klitschko versus Vitaly Klitschko. We'd love to see that. That's a fantasy matchup made in heaven. Like from present day time, Charlo brothers versus each other. Emil Griffith versus, say, Danny Jacobs. Now, I know Emil Griffith would have been smaller and all of that, but, Robert, Benny Leonard versus Willie Pep. And we can just go on and on about these fantasy matchups and how interesting that would have been. Miguel Cotto, Tommy Temper, Miguel Cotto versus Sugar Ray Leonard. That would have been an interesting matchup. Very interesting matchup. Puerto Rico versus the United States of America. That would have been an awesome matchup. Yes, my friend. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you love boxing, man, you would love those kinds of things. And I just wanted to point those things out to some people because obviously, if you look at the greatest boxers of all time, Floyd Mayweather is nowhere near the top 10, not even in the top 20. I think somewhere in 20 something. But if you're looking at the best boxers of all time, you got to put him there at the top, And I just wanted to share that with you guys as I'm here before I go take a rest because I am tired. And just talking a little bit more boxing and talking a little bit more about how we can praise and glorify God. I got to go pray a little bit and rest, guys. You can see my bed doesn't even have a mattress on it. I should really have a mattress on it. So I'm going to try and put on one. Looking forward to a number of other things I want to talk to you guys about in the future. But hopefully this was an enjoyable conversation. We got to talk boxing for a couple of days. Well, I don't know when next I'm going to be talking boxing with you guys, but hopefully it's soon. Boxing is kind of like life in a way. I was looking at Jeff Mayweather teaching this amateur various things and how to box and stuff. It was really awesome to watch. And you've been looking at different people's comments on boxing also out here, and it's very interesting. I was listening to, I think it was Robert Garcia when he was being interviewed by Ellie Segbach, I believe it was, and he was speaking about Diego Corrales and how he still wakes up with nightmares after Diego Corrales had punched him. And I say all of this just to say that there's a lot to learn from each experience in life. I was talking to my mom very recently, and I was telling her that, in life, a lot of times we kind of lose focus of God. And we get distracted and we're focused in on other things. And it happens to me a lot too. But the thing is to focus in on God, on what he's telling you and showing you. And look at what he's done in the past. That's why I always say it's good to be thankful. So you can look back in the past and it gives you a guide as to where you're heading. And with my mom, I was trying to explain to her that, because sometimes you can give in to the present situation and you can become discouraged. You can become negative even of that. And it happened to me a couple of times too. And I always tell people that, and I want this to be out on the airwaves. I always tell people that if you ask God for something, then focus on that thing you ask and focus at that end point. Don't focus on the present, because what's happening in the present is not going to stay. It's temporary. And no matter what it is that's happening in the present, you focus in on the future. I've been praying a lot of prayers, and a lot of prayers are being answered because I'm keeping my eyes on the prize. And not always, and I can't always do it of myself. Obviously, God is the one helping me. But when you look to the end point, that's what really makes a difference. What are you praying about? Then keep focused on that, not what's currently happening. And that's what Paul said, I'm raced towards the prize. And that's the same thing I see with certain boxers. You know, Usyk was being beaten, right? But he kept his eyes on the prize. What he actually wanted to do, what he actually wanted to accomplish, and the fight turned for him. And it goes so for almost any situation, anything in life. Christopher Smith says December 1st. Yep. And Christopher Smith says, and the new, you think Tyson Fury will win? Okay, we'll see. You know, I back Tyson Fury the same way as you, but at the same time, we'll see what Deontay Wilder has to bring to the table, because he's been working on his jab quite well. And I've seen how he's, you know, keeping his head movement, trying to keep defense as he works on his jab. So we'll see how it actually works out with Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. If the story will go the same way as Tony Bellew versus Alexander Usyk, in the sense that it's possible that Tyson Fury, and because he lost so much weight, he may start off well and then start to fade. So we'll see how that goes. But, you know, I still back Tyson Fury just as I backed Tony Bellew. And we'll see how that goes from there, you know. But it's you know, it's good. Yeah, he hasn't gotten the WBC belt yet. That's true. So what's your predictions? Like I said, I have picked Tyson Fury to win by points. That's how I picked in that fight. That I picked Tyson Fury to win by points. I haven't changed my mind. And Christopher Smith picks the same thing. And you know, a lot of people are saying Deontay Wilder will win, maybe stop Tyson Fury or something like that. And if he does, kudos to him. But I'm not going to go against Tyson Fury, in spite of the fact that Tyson Fury has dropped so much weight, and we've seen what that results in when you actually get into a fight. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Tyson Fury may be a different story. Maybe he's prepared better. We'll see. Well, guys, it's great that you guys are here. As you can see, I'm kind of tired. That's why I'm rocking to and fro. I'm going to go try and take a rest and also pray a little bit. And hopefully I get to talk to you guys again if God gives me the grace to do so. You know, you guys have a good one, man. Peace to you guys. And I got to go.